NANI?!
Hey everyone, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with the final chapter, aka the third video in this three-part video series on the 1/16 scale radio-controlled American M1A2 Abrams main battle tank. The model that you see here is built for private commission and belongs to a private collector. As I often mention in these build videos, I frequently take on commission build projects from models ranging between 1/35 scale and 1/6 scale. For availability and pricing information, this would be best by contacting me through the email address listed below, which is info@eastcoastarmory.com. For anyone who's stumbling into this video for the first time, first I want to say welcome, and also this video here is the third part of a three-part video series on this particular project. Because of all the information that's discussed and shown in these videos, trying to edit it all together into one continuous video is just problematic. So I go ahead and I segment it out into three video segments. The first installment, I go over the model at the start of the project, reviewing the base starter kit, as well as going over several aspects of the kit's construction in order to bring up to the condition that we have here. In part two, I focus on the external detailing as well as the paintwork and weathering work and all the information that is relevant for that. And in this video, we're going to be taking this model outdoors for a test drive. So as you can see, there's been a lot of info to talk about this model. However, this video here, it's going to be mostly me just enjoying the outdoors, zipping around with this build. Either way, it's going to be making for an awesome video. So stay tuned and enjoy. With the model outside, we could go ahead and go over the RC systems in more detail. So the first thing I need to do is actually need to rotate the turret in order to get access to the instrument panel where we have all of the power switches and other gizmos. Like I mentioned in one of the other videos, on the older generation kits from Heng, the Abrams power switch is located on the bottom of the tank. However, in recent years, they revised the model where the power switch is conveniently hidden underneath one of the engine access panels that's on the top deck. The pro is that you don't have to flip the tank over in order to recharge the thing, and on a model like this does offer some pros and cons. The pros is that you don't have to flip the tank over to get access to the power switch, and when you have a model that's this heavily detailed with the fragility details on it, you tend to want to have the model on its side as little as possible. However, the con is that in order to get access to it, you actually have to rotate the turret, and you have to do that by hand when the model is off. So you just grab the barrel, and you basically just turn the turret a few clicks. The gearbox does have an interrupter gear in it, so you're not causing any damage when you are rotating the turret manually. However, just as a precautionary measure, I recommend that whoever has this model or gets it, and also anyone that has similar modern kits from Heng with the same type of setup, is to leave the turret ajar on display in the following format so you get access to the switch, as well as also you don't have to put constant wear and tear on the interrupter gear. But that's just a little side note. So this little access panel over here is where the power switch is located. So you flip this up, make sure the cable's out of the way, and underneath the switch we have some bits of equipment. So with the panel flipped open, you get to see the main power switch right here. I went ahead and painted a little red square over there on the on position, so it's going to be fairly easily noticed. We also have two other addendums. One is the recharge jack, which is right here, so you can actually recharge the tank without the need to take it apart, which again, for a model like this, with this type of detailing and complexity on it, that's definitely done for your benefit. And we also have a recharge, or I should say a refiller spout here for the smoke system, and I went into this in more depth in the first installment video. But you can see what it looks like in its final form right here, easy to get to, and it's actually a nice design. I kind of like this setup. So to turn on the vehicle, first thing I am going to do, of course, is turn on the radio. That's customary on all these tank kits, or tank builds I should say. Now I'm going to just hit the switch and close the hatch. Make sure the hatch is thoroughly closed on these, because obviously when the turret rotates, it'll snag the hatch and possibly break it. So that's definitely something you want to avoid. Like with all Heng, when the model is first turned on, the unit will blink in this manner over here, and this means the tank is ready for activation. To activate it or power it on, we have this padlock right over here. You hit this button and it's going to start the sound system. One thing I personally like about this tank is that the sound is that of a turbine engine, which is obviously appropriate for an M1 Abrams. on some of the very early production versions of this vehicle, they had the sound card that was just standard on all of their other kits at the time, which just sounds like a standard internal combustion engine, which for an M1 Abrams is not exactly ideal. However, as the generations went on, they kept on improving the system where they had the ability to have different sound files found on the system, and you had to rotate them out until you found the one that worked for you. For this one here, or at least this example, it came like this from the get-go. Now, I'm going to touch upon this in a second. I'm not sure if this model is totally stock electronically speaking, or if the owner went ahead and did some modifications to it prior to sending it to me, because there's some interesting quirks with the functions, and I'll touch upon that in a second. Anyway, the model has its sound system on. It's currently on the low setting, just so I don't, it's not too loud while in the shop doing the testing. And to adjust the volume, that's simply done with the V right over here. And it has a multitude of different volume settings. So this is the lowest, and incrementally gets higher the more you push the button. And then we also have an off feature, which is great if you want to run your model in the house and you want to be as quiet as possible. But for the duration of the video, before I take it for a spin, I might as well just leave it in its lower setting. So as I mentioned before, these models have the ability to change their sound options, and that's done with these two buttons here, which is G and K. And if you hit the two together, you can change the sound file. This is obviously something you don't want to mess with. And once the vehicle is good to go, just leave it as is. The only reason why I'm saying this information is in case anyone out there has one of these models and they're fumbling with the radio and they accidentally hit these and change the sound file, like, oh no, what did I do? Well, rest assured, it's not a permanent change, and you could just rotate out to the sound setting of your choice. Also, on the older pattern radios, the G and the K both did certain functions. However, on this particular version here, that's just not the case, and these things are only used for the sound setting when, of course, you hit the two together. Back to the top portion of the switch, this one here is smoke, and if you hit this button, this will turn on the smoke system. I did show this in the first installment of the video, and the smoke system does puff, and it puffs with the throttle of the tank, which is actually a very nice touch. It's smoking right now. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it on video with this lighting, and also whenever you're outdoors, smoke systems are always problematic, and I find, even on the bigger ones. It's just one of those things where they work great inside. As soon as you go outside, the wind just easily takes it. But either way, it is smoking. I could see it. It's probably not going to show up on video all that well, but rest assured, the smoke system is fully functional. The next thing to mention is something that's very bizarre, and that has to do with the main sticks. Now, this is something that I've never seen on any Henlong model before, and I've worked on Henlong models that are older than this one here, and also newer than this one here. So what I'm guessing here is that the radio was possibly altered by the owner of the tank before sending it to me to work on, because I've never seen this before, and you'll see in a second what I'm talking about. In the past, generally to drive the tank, that's all done with this stick over here. Up is forward, back is reverse, and go side to side. If you go into the corner, you could make a nice basic turn, and if you just go hard to the left or right, you'll do a neutral turn. However, on this tank over here, it's a bit different. Also, on the other vehicles that I've done from Henlong, this stick here is exclusively for the turret functions. Left and right rotates the turret, up and down elevates and depresses the armament, and some other ones, down or up, will actually fire the BB or the flash animation. This one here, it's more like what I've seen on the Matto Sherman that I built a little while ago, where that one you kind of need both sticks to drive the tank, and that's what was done to this one. Again, I've never seen this done before. I've built Henlongs that are older than this one, that wasn't the case, and I also did a T90 that was manufactured after this one here by a couple years, and that one did not have this system as well, and the functions on the radio were almost identical to the other one. So anyone watching this out there and you say, wow, that's a weird system, as far as I know, this is not from Henlong. I believe possibly the owner tinkered with the radio a little bit to customize it to his settings, which honestly I didn't even know that was possible on one of these Henlong radios, but here we are, so just take it for what it is. So to get a feel of the new controls, up and down on the stick will now elevate and depress the 120. So And it's also in reverse. That's interesting to point out. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe left and right on this one will still rotate the turret. And left is left and right is right for turret rotation, so that's good. As you can see, the turret rotation works fantastic. It's nice and fluid, which is exactly what you want. And this one does have, by the way, the 360 rotation system. Okay. Now, where things get interesting is to drive. So, to go forward and reverse, that's done with this stick here and up and down. And to turn, you use this stick here for left and right. So, as a quick side note, I will say that the tank does have some good speed control. This is something that wasn't always never really the case on these RTR models. Originally on the Gen 1 ones, they were just on or off. It was a binary type system. And then in recent years, they started to improve the electronics by giving you speed control. And the speed control actually has been getting much better as the generations progress. There's some individuals out there that will just dump these electronics altogether to go for a hobby grade type system. And if that's you, that's awesome. But that's not exactly what is in store for this build over here, or really all of my builds. If you notice, I never really mess with the stock electronics. I just basically work around them. Say what you want, but I'm always happy. I was always pretty happy with the stock performance on these models, and some people will debate that, but it's my channel. Anyway, so to rotate, or I should say to turn, we'll go this one over here, and as you can see, I can neutral steer in either direction. And to do a non-neutral steer, you need both sticks working at the same time. So if I go backward and turn, you'll see that one track just stops completely while the other track keeps moving. The system seems a bit convoluted, specifically if you're used to working with the other RTR systems. However, after a minute or two, you can easily adapt to the new settings found on this radio. Then the other functions involve the armament. So if I rotate the turret, first thing I'm going to do is shoot the coax. And that's done with this button over here. Just hit this, and the coax will flash. Also with the ECA system, you'll see that the flash is over here on the back section, which gives you a very realistic animation. This is something that you cannot have with the stock component because the way everything is molded solid. But because the ECA piece is printed with this fork system, you get the realistic flash around the main section. And if I tilt it towards the middle, you can see the flash in the middle portion of the shroud as well, giving you for some very realistic results. Of course, this model being the airsoft firing unit, to fire that, you need to depress on both of these little buttons simultaneously. Of course, when the tank is standing still, it will have that fake little recoil judder thing, which is something that's controversial. Some people like them, most people don't. But either way, it does have it. One thing that I just remembered that I forgot to mention in the other video is the hatch, of course, is fully functional. And when you open it up, it has the interior detailing underneath. This, of course, is stock with the ECA resin hatch. Another thing you'll notice on the inside is that I added a permanent magnet to the hatch well. The reason why I did that was, again, because of what I mentioned in the other video. The model originally has this little plug-in adapter so that you can have some IR battling with your model. And you would have the IR adapter mounted to the outside of the vehicle, and it would clip into this section right over here on top of this vent on the blowout panel. However, that's no longer going to be possible because the blowout panels have been upgraded with the detail sets. So in order to keep the functionality, what I simply did was I just glued a permanent magnet right here to the inside of the hatch well, so you can still have the capability of operating the model in that format. So now that we're all caught up on the model's functions, let's go ahead and take this thing for a test drive. The one thing I will say with this wacky remote setup is that I keep accidentally hitting the elevation. So that is something that if anyone's operating this model should really consider. But other than that, it seems to be working all right. Like I said, having a little trouble with all these thick, wet grass over here. We did have a nice little downpour earlier, so that's probably sludging it up a bit. And if I have to take a guess, I'd say the grass is spaghettiing inside the sprocket. So, yeah, I'll go ahead and take care of that. There you go, now it's performing a lot better. Okay, that's better. Well, it looks like the T90 was done in with snow, and the Abrams seems to be done in with wet grass. Unlike the snow, at least the grass, it's easy to rip out. The snow, I have to let the thing sit and thaw out for about 10 minutes. Alright, that should be suffice for the test drive. And Japanese stillgrass in 1/16, I guess, would be like anti-tank wire, I guess is the best way to put it. Alright, let's get this crap out. Yeah, I'm gonna have fun cleaning this one afterwards. Alright, off we go. A lot of times the grass likes to spool up into the sprocket and it throws the track. Sometimes the track pops back in place, but if that happens and you get constant throwing at the track, go in there and literally just rip the crap out and the tank will start performing a lot better. Let's say hello to the deer over there. I come in peace. Looks like Bambi doesn't want to have any part of this video. Okay. That's cool. Let's get back inside. Alright, so as you can see, the tank for the most part performed pretty well. Given the environmental conditions that I have, tanks do not like wet grass, and this is true for several other, even the larger ones. But either way, the thing was still able to persevere, admittedly with a bit of help from me just constantly plucking the junk out of the spooling that was happening on the sprockets. Outside of that, though, there's no damage on the model itself. Both the under suspension parts that I mentioned in the previous video held up perfectly fine, and for the most part, the model is basically in A1 shape. The only thing I gotta do now is clean it. I got a lot of dead grass to rip out of the track, and that's gonna be fun, as well as potentially wash out any sort of dirt and gravel that is loitering in the suspension. You don't want to have that stuff in there. It's gritty. It could possibly wear things out, so you want to get rid of that stuff too. And again, that just comes with the territory when you're running a model in, well, a post-rainstorm type condition. Outside of that, the model performed pretty well, I think. With the battery that I replaced the stock one with, as you can see, I have more than enough power to continue running, and I probably have, I don't know, another 40 plus minutes remaining of runtime, which is fantastic. I always recommend those batteries, and there's a reason why I always use them and recommend them on these builds and videos. Also, you can see why a steel gearbox is definitely something to look into, specifically if you're going to run your tank outdoors. The zinc gearboxes are just not ideal, and I've even had them fail indoors, let alone outside in a outdoor setting. So whenever in doubt, always roll with steel gears. You can never go wrong. What also held up remarkably well were all the very frail detail accessories that I added to the model. Namely, on the back portion, we have those grills as well as the communication box, not to mention the tail lights. All of those survived with flying colors, and also the rubber mud flaps on the front definitely did their job because they are rubber. I don't know if it came out on video, but I definitely saw whenever there was some thick grass that I was driving through, the rubber was bouncing out of the way, definitely working as advertised. The climb-up cables held up also very well. This is something I did mention in the previous video with the use of a real metal cable for that. And the hubcaps also held up remarkably well too. As you can see, absolutely no damage done to them whatsoever, and they look as good as the day I installed them. And I'm pretty sure they're going to hold up very well to the cleanup process as well, which is something that I'm going to have to get to now. But no point loitering on that. Let's go ahead and bounce back to the filming booth. So here we have a quick little behind the scenes action. The model was brought in from outdoors, and I actually just finished up cleaning all the grass that was on the inside of the suspension. And as for what was pulled out, this is going to be quite astounding to some people, but all this was inside of the wheels and the suspension. So wet grass, and even dry grass, but it's definitely true for wet grass, loves to spool up on the inside portions of all the wheels, and of course on the sprocket, and not to mention the front idler. And when that happens, it's going to cause some problems with performance, and you can get things like tracks getting thrown and things along those lines, which was something that I did encounter while running this thing outdoors. However, I will say that it's actually quite a testament to show how well engineered these Heng models are, that it was able to run more or less all right with a pile of grass on the inside. There is still some little flingies left that I gotta pluck out with a tweezer, but other than that, yeah, this thing was just jam-packed with grass. So this is definitely something to keep in mind, specifically if you drive your RC tanks outdoors and you want to make sure that you have the optimum conditions. The models will run, and I have run them in snow, and of course that also leads to some other conditions that can cause some problems, but grass, if you're in a place that's a warm climate, or it's just a warmer month of the year and you want to run your model, yeah, the grass is something also to consider. It can easily spool up like it did here into the wheels, and in order to get it out, I utilize this little pick here where I basically just stick it into the gap in between the row wheels, and I just spin the row wheel and everything just starts oozing out of it. So that is definitely something to consider, and if you are going to drive around and do some RC tanking, pick up a set of picks like this here. I'm pretty sure you can buy them on Amazon. This thing is like 30 years old now, but it's neither here nor there. Yeah, it was inside the model, and honestly, if the model could run pretty decently with that in it, it actually goes to show you quite a lot. And in the end, what more can possibly be said about this model? These Heng models are always fun to work on, and generally build into a very nice representation of the vehicle in question. Of course, there are some caveats, namely the two that come to mind are the M41 Walker Bulldog as well as the Panther Alpha A. Those two are complete and utter lemons. They are worthless if you're looking for a model outside of something just to play with. But if you're looking for something that's an actual scale representation of the vehicle in question, those two are complete lemons. Outside of those two examples, the remainder of the Heng line are awesome. There's a reason why they are so plentiful and so popular. They just offer so much to the consumer. Be it the scale is excellent, the availability is really, really good, the affordability is superb, the parts availability and commonality on the aftermarket scene is just almost endless, and on top of that, the models are generally very well engineered and, for the most part, perform perfectly. Of course, I'm going to have one or two people popping into the comment section claim that there's a complete lemon and doesn't work, and somehow, some way they strip things, and I don't know what the hell they're doing, but 9 times out of 10, from my experience working with these things, they're bomb-proof, and they really are excellently made, and they're also really, really fun to work on. Going back to what I stated before, where these models are relatively affordable and also have some good availability to them, this is a huge attribute to the hobby, and also it's a great benefit to the builder. These Henlong models here truly are a blank canvas, and the builder can do basically anything they want with it. You can either go conservative with it, where you just leave it stock out of the box, or you could tinker with the electronics and the mechanical systems under the hood and just leave it in that format, or just give it a basic repaint that I've seen many people do. Or you could go on the opposite end like I did over here and basically trick it out and re-detail it out, polishing up to the condition of a model that punches extremely well above its own weight. And this is absolutely awesome. In terms of other competitive options, the only other one that I know of offhand that's a viable competitor would be the M1A2 Abrams kit from Tamiya. And frankly, the Tamiya kit does fall short in many key areas, namely with a lot of the underhull detail components. In fact, many of the details that I put on this model over here, the Tamiya one can actually use itself. And also, the Tamiya kit is almost like triple, if not quadruple, the price of this one here. These kits here retail somewhere, they start at about 100 something US dollars, while the Tamiya one is in the thousands, namely about 1,000, maybe 1,500 or so, depending on where you find it. Either way, the Henlong model here is still a much better value in my opinion. You get a beautifully running model out of the box, and if you want to customize and add more of the advanced electronics, you can easily do so. And even at the end of the day, with all those extra aftermarket accessories and metal bits added to the build, it's still cheaper compared to a baseline Tamiya that you still need to add a lot of these upgrades to. So no matter which way you slice it, the Henlong model here is absolutely superb. This build here turned out absolutely beautifully. Of course, I am a little biased because I built it, and usually when you build something, you tend to have some affection towards it. And that is true, even though this did turn out to be a beautiful build, so much so that I'm kind of going to want to pick up a few M1s for myself. Because again, you could build them in a multitude of different ways, and perhaps I may or may not have some interesting variants of the M1 up my sleeve, but of course, I'll leave that for another video for another day. Back to this one over here. From this point onward, this one, of course, is going to be carefully sealed, bubble wrapped up, and then sent off to the customer. Needless to say, if you're a fan of modern era MBTs, or just a fan of US armor in general, the Henlong M1A2 Abrams is a complete no-brainer, and you can arguably say it's a bit of low-hanging fruit because, again, how affordable and how plentiful it is. So much so that you can actually get more than one, possibly even paint them in different configurations or render them into different variants of the M1 Abrams, and there are a few out there. Some specialty vehicles come to mind. However, there's nothing really much more that needs to be said about this particular build, and that wraps up this three-part series on the 1/16 scale radio-controlled M1A2 Abrams main battle tank. If you like this series and like this video, be sure to subscribe to this channel, where it's a great way to keep up to date on new posted content, being 1/16 scale radio-controlled builds like this one over here, or the other smaller scale content being 1/35 scale and smaller model showcase videos, and not to forget my 1/6 scale project update videos that frequently get posted to this channel. Another way to keep in loop of new posted content is by liking us on Facebook, where I have more photographs of this particular build, as well as photographs of the other smaller and larger scale builds that have been posted in the past. Furthermore, don't forget to swing by eastcoastarmory.com for more 1/6 and 1/16 scale builds and detail components. Thanks again, I'll be seeing you all again on the next one. Take care.